The stars had been quiet for 3,000 cycles. Across 700 inhabited systems, the Galactic Concordat maintained peace through careful diplomacy and measured force. 9 great civilizations sat on the High Council, each representing millions of voices, billions of lives. They debated trade routes and territorial disputes in chambers that floated above the capital world of Centrum Prime. The galaxy had an order to it, a rhythm that everyone understood. In the deepest vaults beneath the council chambers, ancient data crystals held forgotten knowledge. Myths and legends filled these archives, stories of species that never existed or had vanished long ago. Scholars sometimes browsed these files, searching for entertainment or historical curiosities. Most records were dismissed as fiction, tales invented by primitive cultures to explain the universe before they understood science. One such legend spoke of humans. The files were old, corrupted in places, but the description remained clear enough. They came from a planet called Earth, orbiting a yellow star in a system named Sol. Their world was classified as a death world in the ancient texts. Gravity twice as strong as most civilized planets. Weather patterns that could kill in minutes. Predators at every level of the food chain. Yet somehow, in that nightmare environment, humans had evolved. They became the apex predator of their planet, then reached for the stars. The Kandari, an ancient race of four-eyed scholars, kept the most complete records. Their oldest text described humans as paradoxes. They could be gentle and nurturing, forming bonds that lasted lifetimes. But they could also be terrifying in their violence, capable of calculated destruction on scales that made other species uncomfortable. The texts said humans felt emotions more intensely than most races considered healthy. They loved deeply. They grieved completely. They fought ferociously. Most council members had never heard of humans. Those who had considered them allegories, cautionary tales told to teach younglings about underestimating adversaries. After all, no evidence of human civilization existed in explored space. No ruins, no signals, no trace. If they had ever been real, they were long gone now. The Zale hegemony changed everything. They were a militaristic species, insectoid in appearance with a hierarchy as rigid as their exoskeletons. They had been expanding aggressively for the past century, pushing into unclaimed territories at the galaxy's edge. The Council watched them carefully but had not intervened. As long as the Zale stayed in empty space, there was no conflict. A Zale exploration vessel, the Mandible's Edge, detected a derelict ship near the outer veil. This region of space was considered too dangerous for regular traffic. Radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, and unstable nebulae made it a navigator's nightmare. But the Zale were bold, and salvage rights could be profitable. Captain Zelthar approached the derelict with caution. The ship's design was unfamiliar, angular and aggressive in a way that suggested military purpose. Its hull showed signs of catastrophic damage, breaches that had long since frozen over. No power signatures, no life signs, just a dead vessel tumbling through the void. The boarding party suited up and crossed the gap. Inside, they found a tomb. The ship's interior had been exposed to vacuum for what scanners suggested was at least 5,000 cycles. Frozen bodies drifted in the corridors, preserved perfectly by the cold. The Zale had never seen anything like them. Bipedal like many species, but with smooth skin instead of scales or chitin. Hair on their heads. 2 eyes positioned for predatory depth perception. In the ship's command center, they found data storage units. Most were corrupted beyond recovery, but one maintained minimal integrity. The Zale technicians worked carefully, extracting what they could. What they found made their antennae twitch with nervous energy. The message had been recorded in 17 different languages, clearly meant to be understood by anyone who might find it. When translated, the words were simple but chilling. If you find this, know that humanity remembers. We were cast out, imprisoned behind barriers not of our making. We did not start the war, but we fought to survive. If even one colony ship escaped, if even one of our children lives among the stars, then we are not gone. We are waiting. We are preparing, and we remember everything. Captain Zelthar brought the findings to his superiors. They brought it to the council. Ambassador Threnval, the Zale representative, presented the discovery with barely concealed excitement. He showed holographic images of the bodies, the ship's design, the recovered message. He expected scholarly interest, perhaps a research grant to study this archaeological curiosity. Instead, the council chamber fell silent. Historian Velm, the eldest Kandari on the council, went perfectly still. His four eyes widened, pupils dilating in what his species expressed as fear. His breathing apparatus clicked rapidly, a sign of distress. The other council members turned to look at him, confused by his reaction. "You found humans," Velm whispered, his translator making his voice sound hollow and distant. "Living or dead?" "Dead," Thranval confirmed. "Frozen for thousands of cycles." "Why does this matter?" Velm stood slowly, his aged body trembling. "Seal that sector immediately. Mark it as restricted space. Allow no one to return to that location. And pray to whatever powers you believe in that the message is wrong. Pray that none of them survived." The chamber erupted in questions. Velm raised a hand, requesting silence. "I must consult the deep archives. We will reconvene in 3 days. Until then, no one speaks of this discovery outside this chamber." "That is not a request. It is a survival protocol." For 3 days, Velm barely slept. He descended into archives that had not been opened in millennia, reading files that required ancient access codes. He emerged haggard but certain. When the council gathered again, he told them a story. 5,000 years ago, humanity had been part of the galactic community. They had been newcomers, aggressive in their expansion, innovative in ways that made older species uncomfortable. They developed technology at rates that seemed impossible. They asked questions that challenged established scientific consensus. They formed alliances quickly but also made enemies easily. A coalition formed, led by races that no longer existed or had declined into irrelevance. They decided humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too likely to upset the galactic balance. A war was fought, brief but brutal. Humanity lost, not because they were weak, but because they were outnumbered. The coalition drove them back to their home system and erected barriers, quantum fields that prevented FTL travel into or out of the Sol system. They were imprisoned, Velm said quietly, contained like dangerous animals. The coalition told themselves it was necessary, that humanity would have destroyed everything given time. But the truth is simpler. They were afraid, and when the coalition eventually fell apart, when those species faded from power, everyone simply forgot. The quarantine became automated. The warnings were lost. Humanity became a myth. "But if this ship was outside the quarantine," said Ambassador Saris of the Avari Collective, her crystalline voice chiming with concern, "then the containment failed. Or," Velm said, "they escaped. And if they escaped, then for 5,000 cycles they have been out there, growing, building, remembering what was done to them." The chamber fell silent again. Finally, Thranval spoke, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. "What do you recommend?" Velm looked at each council member in turn. "We prepare, and we hope that if they come, they are more merciful than we were." The first sighting came 3 weeks after the council's secret meeting. A transport captain named Jarrell was hauling medical supplies through the outer rim when his sensors detected something impossible. A ship appeared on his scopes, but not through normal FTL exit signatures. It was simply there, as if reality had opened and allowed it through. Jarrell tried to hail the vessel. No response. He tried every frequency, every protocol. Silence. The ship maintained a parallel course for exactly 17 minutes, then vanished the same way it had appeared. When Jarrell reported the incident, his company assumed equipment malfunction. But 3 days later, 5 more ships reported identical encounters. The sightings accelerated. Within a month, over 200 verified reports had reached the council. Ships appearing at the edges of sensors, watching, never responding to communication attempts, then disappearing without trace. They varied in size from small scouts to massive vessels that dwarfed anything in the Concordate fleet. Every attempt to scan them failed. Their hulls absorbed targeting locks. Their energy signatures made no sense according to known physics. The Concordate military went on alert. Border stations doubled their watch crews. Patrol routes intensified, but the ghost ships never attacked. They never interfered with traffic. They simply observed, as if taking inventory of everything the Concordate possessed. In the council chambers, tensions escalated. The merchant guilds complained that the uncertainty was disrupting trade. Insurance rates had tripled. Some shipping companies refused to accept contracts in the Outer Rim. The Avari Collective urged patience and peaceful outreach. The Zale hegemony demanded military action. We cannot allow unknown vessels to operate freely in our space, Ambassador Threnval declared, his mandibles clicking with agitation. It is a matter of sovereignty, of security. If we do nothing, we appear weak. Historian Velm tried to counsel caution, but younger council members were losing patience with his warnings. They had not lived through the times he remembered only from texts. They had not learned the lessons he tried to teach. The Zale proposal gained support. Send a military task force to intercept one of these ghost ships and force it to identify itself. The Zale assembled 3 battle groups, their finest vessels with their most experienced crews. They positioned themselves along a route where ghost ships frequently appeared, and they waited. When sensors detected an approaching vessel, they moved to intercept. The human ship was larger than expected, roughly the size of a Zale heavy cruiser. Its hull was a dark gray that seemed to drink in light. As the Zale formation surrounded it, the ship simply stopped, hanging motionless in space. It made no attempt to flee or power weapons. "Unknown vessel," Commander Krelzar transmitted. "You are in violation of concordate space regulations. Identify yourself immediately or we will open fire." The human ship remained silent. Krelzar waited the required time according to military protocols, then gave the order. Plasma cannons fired, missiles launched, particle beams lanced across the void. The Zale had brought enough firepower to crack a small moon. Every shot passed harmlessly through shimmering fields that appeared around the human vessel. The ship absorbed the assault without any visible damage. No shields flickered, no armor ablated. It simply stood there untouched as if the Zale weapons were nothing more than flashlights. Then the human ship transmitted. Not words, but pure data. A set of coordinates in neutral space accessible to both sides, and a date exactly 2 months in the future. That was all. The transmission ended and the ship vanished. The Zale battle groups returned to base, their crews shaken. They had expended massive amounts of ammunition without achieving anything. Worse, they had revealed their weapons' capabilities while the mysterious ship had revealed almost nothing about its own. The council erupted into chaos when they learned what happened. Some members accused the Zale of reckless aggression. Others worried that the attack would provoke retaliation. Threnval defended his military's actions but could not explain why the ship had been untouchable. "We need to know what we are dealing with," said Councillor Iris Venn of the Dalasi Confederation, her scales shifting colors with anxiety. "Are these ships connected to the human derelict? Is this an invasion force preparing to strike?" Velm had been conducting research since the derelict's discovery. Now he shared what he had found, and his findings brought no comfort. He displayed historical documents, most heavily redacted or corrupted, but the picture they painted was clear. The quarantine of humanity's home system had not been as complete as history suggested. The ancient coalition had used quantum barrier technology, creating a shell around the Sol system that prevented FTL travel, but the barriers had required maintenance stations, automated facilities that checked the integrity of the fields. Those stations had been abandoned when the coalition fell apart. Without maintenance, the barriers would have degraded over thousands of cycles. Quantum fields were not meant to last forever. They could have broken free centuries ago, Velm concluded. If they possessed enough understanding of the technology, they could have dismantled the barriers from the inside. And once free, they would have had access to the entire galaxy. "Then why wait until now to reveal themselves?" asked Ambassador Saris. "Why the mysterious appearances? Why not contact us directly?" No one had a good answer. A junior intelligence officer named Kessa, an Avari with exceptional analytical skills, requested permission to address the council. It was unusual, but Velm recognized her potential and granted approval. Kessa projected a holographic star map. "I have been analyzing the pattern of ghost ship sightings. At first they appeared random, but they are not. The ships are conducting a systematic survey. They are mapping our territory, cataloging our resources, identifying our military positions. This is reconnaissance. Preparation for invasion," Threnval said, vindicated. "Or," Kessa continued carefully, "preparation for something else. Notice the timing. They transmitted coordinates for a meeting 2 months from now. They could attack at any time but choose not to. They could hide completely but instead let us see them. I believe they want us to know they exist. They want us nervous. They want us to come to that meeting uncertain and afraid." "Why?" demanded Iris Venn. "Psychological advantage," Kessa said. In negotiations, the side that appears more powerful and mysterious holds the advantage. If these are humans and if they remember being imprisoned by our ancestors, they want us to understand how much stronger they have become. The council debated long into the night cycles. Some advocated for mobilizing the entire Concordat fleet and meeting the mysterious ships with overwhelming force. Others argued for diplomatic preparation, assembling their finest ambassadors and hoping for peaceful contact. The merchant guilds wanted nothing to do with either option and lobbied for ignoring the whole situation. In the end, the council voted to send a delegation to the coordinates on the specified date. They would bring diplomats to talk and warships to protect. They would hope for peace but prepare for conflict. Kessa continued her research, driven by curiosity that her species was known for. She dug deeper into the archives, cross-referencing corrupted files with astronomical data. What she discovered made her request an urgent private meeting with historian Velm. In his chambers, she showed him what she had found. The mythical human homeworld Earth still existed in the classified military database. The entry was old, tagged with security protocols that had long since been deprecated. She had only found it by accident, following data trails that no one had examined in millennia. The entry read, Target, Sol 3, Designation Earth, Quarantine Status, Active, Species Containment Successful. Monitoring recommended for 10,000 cycles or until species achieves cultural stability. Current threat level, Omega class if released. Velm's eyes widened as he read. Someone was supposed to be watching them for 10,000 cycles, but the monitoring stations were abandoned after less than 3,000. They were alone for 7,000 cycles, Kessa said quietly, imprisoned without even the courtesy of jailers. What does that do to a species? Velm did not answer. He was thinking about humans trapped in their home system, watching the stars they could not reach. 7,000 cycles of isolation, 7,000 cycles to think about what had been done to them, 7,000 cycles to plan what they would do when they finally broke free. We made them into something, he said finally. We took a young species and locked them away out of fear. We gave them time to grow in darkness, nursing grievances we caused. If they come to that meeting seeking vengeance, we will have no moral ground to stand on. We can only hope they are better than we were. Kessa looked at the countdown on her datapad. 53 days until the meeting. 53 days to prepare for first contact with a species that had every reason to hate them. She wondered if that would be enough time. She suspected it would not. The coordinates led to a region of space that held nothing of strategic value. No planets, no resources, just empty void between star systems. The Concordat delegation arrived 3 days early, wanting time to prepare defensive positions. They brought their finest diplomatic vessel, a beautiful ship designed to impress visiting dignitaries. Behind it waited 20 warships, hidden but ready. On the diplomatic vessel's bridge, Ambassador Saris reviewed her notes for the 100th time. She had been chosen to lead the delegation because her people, the Avari, had not participated in the ancient war against humanity. Her species had been exploring their own region of space when those events occurred. She hoped that might matter to whoever was coming. Historian Velm stood beside her, his aged body supported by assistance devices. He had insisted on being present despite his declining health. I studied their history, he said quietly. I should be here to face what our predecessors created. Kessa worked at a science station monitoring sensor arrays. She had been granted a position on the delegation as recognition for her research. Her crystalline hands moved across holographic controls, adjusting frequencies, searching for any sign of the mysterious ships. The appointed time arrived. For 17 minutes, nothing happened. Some of the military commanders began suggesting the whole thing had been a deception, a way to gather intelligence on Concordat forces. Then Kessa's sensors detected something. Space itself seemed to ripple. Reality bent in ways that made mathematical models scream errors. And through that distortion, a ship emerged. Then another. And another. The human vessels appeared in perfect formation. Their movements synchronized with precision that suggested either computer control or impossible coordination. The largest ship was unlike anything the Concordat had ever built. It stretched over 3 kilometers long, sleek and predatory. Its hull was a dark metal that seemed to shift colors depending on viewing angle. Smaller vessels surrounded it, moving in patterns that reminded Saris of earthfish she had seen in archive footage. Schooling behavior translated to space combat. The human fleet stopped exactly 5,000 kilometers from the concordate position, close enough to communicate easily, far enough to make weapons fire impractical. They made no aggressive moves, simply held position and waited. Saris took a deep breath and opened a communication channel. Unknown vessels, this is Ambassador Saris of the Galactic Concordate. We received your coordinates and come in peace, hoping to understand who you are and what you seek. For a long moment, no response came. Then a transmission arrived. Audio and visual data perfectly formatted for concordate systems. A face appeared on the main screen, and the entire bridge crew stared. It was human. No doubt remained now. She appeared middle-aged by the species standards, with dark skin and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a functional style. Her eyes were dark and impossibly expressive, holding an intelligence that made even Velm feel like a student. Ambassador Saris, the human said. Her words translated instantly into perfect galactic standard. I am Ambassador Sarah Chen, representing the United Colonies of Humanity. Yes, we received the name of your organization. We have been listening to your communications for quite some time. Chen paused, and something like a smile crossed her face, though it held no warmth. We know what your ancestors did to ours. We have had 5,000 years behind your quarantine fields to think about it, to study it, to understand why they feared us so much that imprisonment seemed like the only answer. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze intense. 5,000 years is a long time, Ambassador. Civilizations rise and fall in less. Species evolve in that span. Technologies are invented, perfected, and made obsolete. We have had all that time to decide what kind of species we wanted to be when we finally broke free. The concordate bridge was silent. Every eye watched the human ambassador, trying to read her intentions. Was this the prelude to demands for reparations? A declaration of war? An ultimatum? Chen's expression softened slightly. We are not here for revenge, though we would be justified in seeking it. We are not here to conquer, though we possess the capacity. We are here because your galaxy is dying and you do not even know it. Before anyone could respond, Chen transmitted a massive data packet. Kessa's console lit up with incoming information, scientific data on scales she had never processed before. She worked quickly, verifying authenticity, checking for malware or deceptions. The data was genuine. What is this? Saris asked, trying to maintain diplomatic composure while her mind reeled. We call it the Void Blight, Chen explained. A dimensional tear originating from the galactic core. It consumes space itself, leaving nothing behind. Not destruction, Ambassador. Actual nothing. Systems that touch the Blight's edge simply cease to exist in any meaningful way. Holographic displays activated, showing the galaxy from perspectives the Concordate had never achieved. From the core, a darkness spread, growing slowly but inevitably. Chen overlaid timeline projections. At current expansion rates, the Blight will reach concordate space in 47 standard years. The outer colonies will be affected first. Within a century, everything you have built will be gone. Counselor Iris Venn, watching from her ship nearby, cut into the communication. If this is true, why have our scientists not detected it? Chen did not seem offended by the interruption. Because you lack the sensor technology to perceive dimensional phenomena at this scale. Your quantum physics understanding is roughly equivalent to where ours was 3,000 years ago. No offense intended, but you have been coasting on incremental improvements to ancient technology for millennia. The Blight operates on principles you have not yet theorized. Velm spoke up, his translator carrying his aged voice across the distance. Why should we believe you? This could be a manipulation, a way to make us dependent on human assistance. Chen nodded as if she had expected the question. Historian Velm, yes, we know who you are. We know you discovered the truth about the quarantine. We know you have been trying to warn your council about the dangers of our return. She paused. You are right to be suspicious. Trust must be earned, not demanded. We are transmitting coordinates to a system on your frontier, where the Blight's effects are just beginning. Send your own scientists. Verify our claims independently. We will wait. And if we confirm the Blight exists? Saris asked. What then? Then we talk about survival, Chen said simply. The Blight cannot be stopped by any one species. We have been studying it for 2 centuries and barely understand its nature. But we have theories. We have technologies that might work. We have weapons that can seal smaller tiers. What we do not have is enough resources, enough personnel, enough diversity of thought. She gestured to her crew, humans working at stations behind her. We spent 5,000 years alone, Ambassador. We grew strong in that isolation. We developed technologies you would consider impossible, but we also learned our limitations. Humanity alone cannot save the galaxy. We need allies. We need different perspectives, different approaches to problems. We need the Concordat. Ambassador Threnval's voice crackled over communications, his tone aggressive. This is convenient. You appear with warnings of apocalypse and offer to save us. What is the cost? What do you want in exchange for your help? Chen turned her attention to the Zale transmission. Ambassador Threnval, your forces attacked one of our ships. No harm was done and we hold no grudge. But I must be clear, we are not selling protection. We are offering alliance. The cost is trust. The payment is mutual effort. We work together or we all face extinction separately. Pretty words, Threnval responded, but your species was deemed too dangerous to share the galaxy with. Why should we believe you have changed? For the first time, emotion broke through Chen's diplomatic control. Anger flashed in her eyes, though her voice remained steady. We were deemed dangerous by species who feared change, who feared being surpassed, who feared that newcomers might disrupt their comfortable order. They did not give us a chance to prove ourselves. They did not try to understand us. They simply locked us away and forgot about us. She stood, and the camera adjusted to keep her in frame. You want to know what 5,000 years of isolation did to us? It gave us time to reflect, to examine our own nature, to decide who we wanted to be without outside influence. We could have spent that time nursing hatred, planning revenge, building weapons to punish those who imprisoned us. Some of us wanted that, but we chose differently. We chose to become better than those who feared us. We chose to prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars, not through conquest but through contribution. We chose hope over hatred. But make no mistake, ambassadors, this is not weakness. We are offering alliance from a position of strength, not desperation. With or without you, humanity will survive. The question is whether the Concordat will survive. The communication channel went silent. Cirrus looked at Velm, seeking guidance. The old historian's 4 eyes reflected deep thought. Finally, he activated his own transmission. Ambassador Chen, you have given us much to consider. We will send scientists to verify your claims about the Blight. We will convene the full council to debate your offer. This is not a decision that can be made quickly. Chen nodded, settling back into her chair. We understand. We will remain in this location for 10 standard days. After that, we return to our own space to continue preparations. We hope to hear from you soon, but we will not wait forever. The Blight does not respect diplomatic timelines. The transmission ended. The human fleet remained in position, silent and waiting. On the Concordat vessels, chaos erupted as everyone tried to process what had just occurred. Humanity was real. Humanity was powerful, and humanity claimed the galaxy was dying. Cirrus turned to Kessa. Can you assemble a scientific team quickly? Kessa's crystalline features shifted in what her species expressed as determination. Already compiling the list. We will have answers within 3 days. Velm placed a hand on Cirrus's shoulder. The galaxy changed today. The myths became real. Now we must decide if we have the courage to work with the very species our ancestors feared most. I fear the choice will not be easy. Cirrus looked at the view screen where human ships hung in space, patient and ready. No, she agreed. It will not be easy at all. The scientific expedition confirmed everything. Kessa led a team of the Concordat's finest researchers to the coordinates Chen had provided. What they found defied easy description. Space itself looked wrong there. Stars near the affected region appeared distorted, their light bending around something that should not exist. Sensors screamed errors. Mathematical models broke down. Reality was coming apart at the seams. They watched as a small moon drifted too close to the phenomenon. The moon did not explode or crumble. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, solid and real. The next moment there was nothing. Not even debris. The space where the moon had been was emptier than vacuum. A void that hurt to perceive. Kessa's report to the council was brief and terrifying. The humans told the truth. The Blight is real and it is spreading. At current rates, we have less than 50 years before it reaches inhabited systems. We need help. We need the humans. The vote was narrow, contentious, and bitter. The council authorized formal alliance negotiations by a margin of 5-4. 3 species abstained. The Zale voted against it but were outvoted. Within a week, human representatives arrived at Centrum Prime to begin discussions. Integration proved harder than anyone expected. The cultural gap was immense. Humans thought differently, acted differently, operated by social rules that seemed alien to species who valued conformity and predictable behavior. They asked questions that made others uncomfortable. They challenged assumptions that had gone unquestioned for millennia. They suggested solutions that seemed reckless or impossible. Military joint exercises became exercises in frustration. Human tactics emphasized speed, flexibility, and controlled chaos. They broke formation constantly, adapting to situations in real time. Concordate forces operated by carefully planned maneuvers, with contingencies preloaded and ready to execute. When forced to work together, neither side understood what the other was doing. A training exercise in the neutral zone demonstrated the problem perfectly. Human and concordate ships were supposed to respond to a simulated emergency, a civilian station under attack by raiders. The concordate fleet formed standard defensive positions and began systematic evacuation protocols. The human ships ignored the formation entirely, each vessel taking independent action based on real-time assessment. To the concordate commanders, it looked like chaos. Ships moving without coordination, breaking away from protective formations, taking risks that seemed suicidal. They expected disaster. Instead, they watched in confusion as the humans accomplished the mission in half the projected time, with 0 casualties. After the exercise, Concordate Admiral Cross Venn demanded an explanation. Your vessels acted without coordination. You abandoned standard defensive positions. How did you succeed? The human commander, Captain Elena Rodriguez, smiled. We had complete coordination, Admiral. It just didn't look like what you expect. Every human ship was connected through tactical networks, sharing information constantly. We saw the entire battle space as one organism, not separate units. Each ship adapted to what others were doing without needing explicit orders. That seems inefficient, Crossven said. What if the network fails? Then we adapt to that too, Rodriguez replied. Human military doctrine is built on one principle. No plan survives contact with reality. We train to think, not just follow orders. It makes us harder to predict, but it also makes us harder to defeat. The cultural learning went both ways. Humans discovered that their new allies possessed strengths they had not developed. The Avari could process multiple streams of information simultaneously, making them exceptional coordinators. The Zale, despite their hostility, had logistical systems refined over thousands of years. The Delasi understood energy dynamics in ways that made human engineers reconsider their assumptions. Slowly, grudgingly, respect began to grow. The turning point came when the blight struck without warning. A Zale mining colony, home to 40,000 workers, detected anomalies at the system's edge. Before they could evacuate, space tore open. The blight was expanding faster than projections suggested. The colony sent desperate distress signals as reality began unraveling around them. The nearest concordate response fleet was 3 hours away. They scrambled immediately, knowing they would arrive too late. The colony would be gone before help arrived, swallowed by the nothing. But the human rapid response team was only 15 minutes away. 3 ships, small and fast, equipped with experimental technology. They arrived as the blight tier was growing, consuming the outer mining platforms. The Zale colonists, terrified and certain they were about to die, watched as human vessels dove toward the expanding void. What happened next was recorded by the colony's automated cameras and transmitted across the entire concordate. Human crews in environmental suits worked in exposed space, mere kilometers from the dimensional tear. They deployed devices called quantum anchors, establishing a network around the blight's edge. Energy weapons fired not at targets but at space itself, using something called hard light weaving to create temporary barriers. The humans worked with a speed that seemed impossible, coordinating through constant communication. When one anchor failed under the blight's pressure, a human engineer in a suit flew directly to it, repairing connections while reality twisted around them. They knew one mistake meant ceasing to exist. They did it anyway. It took 47 minutes. The quantum anchors stabilized the tear. The hard light weaving sealed it. The blight's expansion stopped. Then the humans turned their attention to rescue operations. They pulled survivors from crumbling stations, working until the last possible moment. 17 humans died in the operation, their suits failing or getting too close to unstable regions. They saved 4,236 Zale Ambassador Threnval, watched the recordings in his private chambers. He watched humans risk everything for people who had attacked them, who had voted against alliance, who had called them dangerous. He watched them work with a ferocity that came from caring, not from obligation. And something shifted in his understanding. He requested a private meeting with Ambassador Chen. They met in a neutral conference room, just the two of them and translators. Threnval's mandibles clicked with nervous energy. "My people have a saying," he began. "Judge others by their actions in crisis, not their words in peace. Your people saved my colony. Many of those miners were from my own hive clan. You had no obligation to help. We have been your strongest opponents in the council." Chen nodded. "We helped because it was right, because those were lives that could be saved. The politics did not matter in that moment." "This is not how we understand you," Threnval said. "We thought humans were aggressive, dangerous, unpredictable. The ancient record said you were to be feared." "We are all those things," Chen replied. "Humans can be aggressive when needed. We are dangerous when threatened. We are unpredictable because we adapt quickly. But those same traits make us loyal allies. Once you become our friend, we will face impossible odds to protect you. Your ancestors saw the dangerous parts and never gave us a chance to show the other parts." Threnval stood silent for a long moment. "I was wrong to oppose the alliance. I will make this right." But not everyone felt the same way. A faction within the Zale military, humiliated by their earlier defeat and fearful of human dominance, began spreading propaganda. They claimed the Blight was a human weapon, a false crisis created to make the Concordat dependent on human protection. The conspiracy grew, finding believers among those who feared change. Someone leaked classified information suggesting human experiments with dimensional technology had occurred before the Blight appeared. The data was taken out of context, but it was enough. Anti-human protests erupted on multiple worlds. Trade ships refused to work with human crews. Several joint research stations reported violence. Kessa, still investigating human history, stumbled onto the conspiracy. She discovered that the leaked documents had been altered. Data changed to create false connections. She traced the manipulation back to a group of Zale military intelligence officers. Before she could present her evidence to the council, they captured her. The conspirators planned to kill her and make it look like a human attack, further inflaming tensions. But Kessa managed to send one message before they blocked her communications. It reached Lieutenant Marcus Webb, her human counterpart in the Joint Intelligence Program. Webb did not wait for approval or permission. He assembled a team, 3 humans and 2 Avari who trusted him. They tracked Kessa's location to a Zale military station at the edge of Concordat space. Storming a military installation would violate every diplomatic protocol. It would probably destroy the fragile alliance. Webb did it anyway. The rescue became a running battle through the station's corridors, broadcast across the galaxy by news services who had been monitoring the situation. Viewers watched humans and Concordat personnel fighting side by side. They saw Webb take a plasma bolt meant for his Avari teammate. They saw the team refuse to leave anyone behind, even when retreat would have been easier. They saw something that made the conspiracy fall apart. Genuine trust between species who had been strangers months ago. The bonds formed through shared danger, through protecting each other when it mattered most. Kessa's evidence went public during the rescue. The conspiracy collapsed as the truth emerged. The military officers responsible were arrested by their own people, with Ambassador Threnval personally overseeing their detention. But the crisis had shown something important. The alliance was not just political convenience. Real connections had formed between individuals. Humans and Concordat personnel who had worked together, fought together, saved each other's lives. Those bonds would not break easily. Admiral Cross-Ven, watching the rescue footage, finally understood what Captain Rodriguez had meant. Humans did not just think differently in combat. They thought differently about everything. They formed connections quickly and held them fiercely. They took risks for people they cared about without calculating cost. "They are not unpredictable," he said to his staff. "They are predictable in exactly one way. Once they decide you are worth protecting, they will do anything. That is not a weakness. That is the most powerful military asset I have ever encountered." The galaxy was learning what it meant to have humanity as an ally. And for most species, that lesson came as a pleasant surprise. The alliance solidified over the following months. Joint research stations studied the Blight, combining human innovation with Concordat expertise. Military units trained together. learning to blend their different approaches into something stronger than either could achieve alone. Cultural exchange programs introduced species to each other's histories, arts, and philosophies. The galaxy was changing, becoming something new, but the blight was changing too. It accelerated. Projections that predicted 50 years of safety suddenly collapsed to 20, then 10. The dimensional tiers were spreading faster, as if the blight was learning, adapting, responding to attempts to contain it. Entire systems vanished weekly now, their stars simply ceasing to exist. Emergency sessions became routine. The Council worked around the clock, coordinating evacuation of frontier systems, deploying quantum anchors to stabilize vulnerable regions, conducting research at a pace that strained resources. Everyone knew they were losing ground. The question was whether they could develop a permanent solution before the blight consumed everything. Then came the catastrophic incursion. A massive tear opened in the heart of concordate space, larger than anything previously encountered. It appeared without warning, ignoring all the early detection systems. The tear manifested near the Dalasi homeworld, threatening 6 billion lives. The nearest concordate fleet scrambled immediately, but they were 2 hours away. Human rapid response teams were closer, but woefully insufficient for a crisis of this magnitude. Ambassador Chen transmitted an urgent message to the council chambers where representatives watched in horror. "We are out of time for half measures," Chen said, her voice tight with controlled urgency. "This tear is too large for standard containment. We need to deploy the full fleet. All of it." Saris, who had become the unofficial leader of the council during the crisis, understood immediately. "You want to reveal your entire military capacity. Everything you have been keeping in reserve." "Yes. We cannot save the Dalasi homeworld with what we have deployed here. But humanity has been preparing for this fight longer than you have known we existed. It is time to show the galaxy what 5,000 years of preparation looks like." Thren Val, now one of humanity's strongest advocates, spoke up. "The Council authorizes full deployment. Save our people, Ambassador. Whatever it takes." Chen nodded once, then turned to her communications officer. "Send the signal. Full recall. Tell them we need everything we can field and we need it now." What emerged from quantum displacement gates across human space made the galaxy stop and stare. Hundreds of ships representing every advancement humanity had achieved in isolation. Massive carriers launched fighter squadrons that moved with impossible coordination. Battlecruisers bristled with weapons based on physics the Concordat was still theorizing. Science vessels carried equipment that could manipulate dimensional forces. And at the center, emerging through a gate that strained to accommodate its mass, came the Indomitable. It was not a ship. It was a mobile station, a constructed moon of metal and technology, 5 kilometers across, powered by contained quantum singularities armed with weapons that could crack planets. But its true purpose was not destruction. The Indomitable was built to seal dimensional tiers permanently, a solution humanity had been developing for 2 centuries. The human fleet arrived at the Dalasi system with time to spare. They did not arrive alone. Every available Concordat vessel came too, from massive battleships to small scientific craft. The fleet that assembled around the Dalasi homeworld represented every species, every culture, every individual who had decided that unity was worth more than old fears. The blight tear was enormous, a wound in reality that consumed light itself. Entities emerged from it, things that had no right to exist in normal space. Creatures made of unstable dimensions that attacked anything with coherent structure. The fleet faced them while the Indomitable prepared its systems. What followed was a battle unlike any in galactic history. Human ships dove into danger, drawing fire while Concordat vessels deployed quantum anchors in careful patterns. Avari coordination teams processed information from thousands of sources, directing resources where needed most. Zale Marines, fighting alongside human soldiers, boarded and destroyed blight entities that tried to reach civilian evacuation ships. Every species contributed their strengths. Admiral Cross Venn commanded the Concordat forces, his tactical displays showing a battlefield that would have overwhelmed any individual. But Captain Rodriguez coordinated with him, their 2 styles blending into something neither could achieve alone. Where Cross Venn saw structure and planning, Rodriguez saw opportunity and adaptation. Together, they turned chaos into strategy. Kessa, working on a science vessel, coordinated the quantum anchor network. Her Avari ability to process multiple data streams made her perfect for the role. She worked with human engineers, each group learning from the other in real time. When an anchor cluster failed, they redesigned the network on the fly, implementing solutions neither species would have considered independently. But the Indomitable's charging sequence required 17 minutes. 17 minutes where the fleet had to hold position against an enemy that never stopped coming. Ships took damage. People died. The line held. At 14 minutes, a massive blight entity emerged, larger than anything encountered before. It moved toward the Indomitable with clear purpose, as if the blight itself recognized the threat. The creature was made of unfolded dimensions, its form shifting in ways that hurt to perceive. Captain Rodriguez did not hesitate. She took her ship, the Defiant, directly into the entity's path. All ships concentrate fire on my position. Give the Indomitable time. What followed was an act of desperate courage. The Defiant fired every weapon, burned every shield, pushed every system past safety limits. A dozen other ships, human and concordate, both joined her. They knew they could not destroy the entity, but they could slow it. By precious seconds, the Defiant's shields collapsed. Hull breaches erupted across multiple decks. Rodriguez kept firing, kept pushing, refusing to retreat until her ship could literally do nothing more. At 16 minutes, the Defiant went dark, its power core destroyed. Emergency pods launched, saving most of the crew. The ship itself tumbled away, a sacrifice that bought the time needed. At 17 minutes exactly, the Indomitable activated. The weapon was not a beam or a blast. It was reality enforcement. The massive station generated a field that said, with the weight of physics behind it, that normal space existed here and nothing else could. The field expanded, touching the blight tier, and for a moment the two forces contested. Then reality won. The tier sealed, not gradually but instantly, as if a wound had been stitched closed. The blight entities caught on the wrong side simply ceased to exist. Space returned to normal. The Delassi homeworld was saved. The fleet erupted in celebration. Ships from a dozen species shared in victory, their crews exhausted but alive. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Crossven allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Then he opened communications to the drifting Defiant. Captain Rodriguez, this is Crossven. Your ship took critical damage, but your crew is safe. Do you require assistance? Rodriguez's voice came through, strained but carrying humor. We're a bit bruised, Admiral, but we are alive. That is what matters. You risked everything to buy us time. Why? Because that is what allies do. We protect each other. No one left behind, remember? Crossven felt something shift in his understanding, a final piece falling into place. I understand now. This is what the ancient coalition feared. Not human aggression or technology. They feared this loyalty, this willingness to sacrifice for others. They feared that once humanity formed connections, nothing would break them. On Centrum Prime, the Council gathered for an emergency session. But this was not a session of crisis. This was recognition. Ambassador Sarah stood before the assembly, her crystalline features reflecting the chamber's lights. We have witnessed something unprecedented, she said. Multiple species working together, not through obligation, but through genuine cooperation. The humans showed us their full strength today. They revealed capabilities they could have kept hidden. They trusted us with their most powerful weapons, and together we achieved what none of us could do alone. She turned to Ambassador Chen, who stood among the council for the first time. The Galactic Concordat has operated with 9 member species for 3,000 years. Today we formally invite humanity to become the 10th, not as junior partners or probationary members, but as full equals. Will you accept? Chen looked at the council, seeing species who had been enemies and strangers now becoming friends. She thought about 5,000 years of isolation, of waiting, of preparing for this moment. She thought about the humans who had died today, and the aliens who died beside them fighting for each other. On behalf of humanity, she said, we accept. But we have one condition. The chamber went silent, uncertain. Chen smiled. We want the Zale military officers who tried to sabotage the Alliance to be granted mercy. They acted from fear, not malice. We have learned that fear makes people do terrible things. We want this alliance to be built on forgiveness, not revenge. Ambassador Threnval, representing the Zale, stood slowly. His mandibles trembled with emotion his species rarely showed publicly. You would grant mercy to those who tried to destroy you? We would prefer to make them into friends. Chen replied. Fear made your ancestors imprison us. Fear made these officers attack us. We want to break that cycle. Show them they have nothing to fear from humanity. Show them that different can mean better, not worse. The vote was unanimous. Humanity became the 10th council member. The officers received reduced sentences and mandatory service in joint human concordate programs, where they would learn firsthand what they had tried to destroy. In the months that followed, the combined efforts of 10 species made progress against the blight. The Indomitable had proven the concept worked. Now humanity shared the technology freely, teaching others how to build their own reality enforcement stations. The galaxy mobilized not in conquest or competition, but in cooperation. Historian Velm, in his final public address before retirement, spoke to a new generation growing up in a changed galaxy. His words were recorded and taught in schools across hundreds of worlds. We created the human myth because we were afraid, he said. We imprisoned them because we could not understand them. We forgot about them because guilt is easier to ignore than address. But they did not forget us. They spent 5,000 years becoming better than we were. They chose hope over hatred. They chose forgiveness over revenge. They chose to save us rather than condemn us. He paused, his old eyes reflecting a lifetime of learning. Our ancestors' greatest mistake was not imprisoning humanity. It was never giving them the chance to become our friends. We saw them as dangerous and made it true by our actions, but they saw themselves as hopeful and made that true by their choices. The question we must ask ourselves is simple. What kind of galaxy do we want to build together? On Earth, in the restored city of New Geneva, a memorial was unveiled. It honored not the years of imprisonment, but the alliance that followed. Representatives from all 10 council species attended, standing together as the monument was revealed. The inscription, written in every major galactic language, read simply, "They thought we were myths. We proved we were real. Together we became legendary." Admiral Crossven stood beside Captain Rodriguez, both watching the ceremony. Rodriguez's new ship, the Defiant II, had been built with combined technology, faster and stronger than anything either species could build alone. "Do you think it will last?" Crossven asked. "Can species so different truly work together permanently?" Rodriguez smiled. "We are already working together. Every day we choose to continue is a victory. The blight gave us a reason to unite. What we build after the blight is defeated will determine if we stay united. And what do you think we will build? Something better than what came before? Something worth the wait. Something that makes 5,000 years of isolation seem like a small price for what we gained." Above them, ships from 10 species flew in formation, their trajectories weaving patterns that represented unity. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had returned. And together, they were writing a new chapter in galactic history. The myths had become reality, and reality had become hope.